A shocking move by the Jets to fire their head coach Robert Saleh just 5 games into the season.
It is also true that he was the bad head coach. I said it last week.
Absolutely stunned. Absolutely stunned. Didn't see it coming. Didn't feel it. Didn't see any pressure felt.
The New Jersey Jets shocked the NFL world on Tuesday morning when they fired head coach Robert Saleh just 5 games into the 2024 NFL season. While the Jets' 2-3 record is disappointing, it definitely felt premature to give up on a head coach just 5 outings into the season. The only other time in recent history that a coach was fired this early into a season was 2020 when the Texans fired Bill O'Brien after an 0-4 start, and a week later the Falcons fired Dan Quinn with an 0-5 start. In 2019, the Redskins fired Jay Gruden after an 0-5 start as well. But Saleh wasn't 0-5, he wasn't 0-4, he was 2-3, just a game back from first place in the AFC East, ahead of a Monday night game against the Buffalo Bills where, if the Jets win, they'll take the lead in the division. With the Saleh firing, you are left to wonder who's the next head coach to go. And that question does bring us to the ones everybody talks about: Nick Sirianni, Kevin Stefanski, Zach Taylor, Brian Daboll, and Doug Peterson. But I want to start with 2 coaches that have a ton of similarities, and for some reason, one is on the hot seat. Granted, his contract situation has a lot to do with why, and the other coach isn't talked about at all, but maybe should be. Before we get to all of that, if you love football, I love you. And for that reason, you should subscribe to my channel. If you dig this video, please don't forget to like and then turn on those notifications so that you don't miss an upload. Obviously, you saw the thumbnail to this video, so you know that I'm talking about Sean McDermott. And there's a few reasons why I think Sean McDermott belongs in the hot seat conversation. First of all, if Mike McCarthy is in the hot seat, why the hell isn't Sean McDermott? Cowboys fans have been calling for Mike McCarthy to be fired because despite his phenomenal regular season success, he can't get the Cowboys over the hump in the postseason. But I'd say the same is true of Sean McDermott. As a head coach, Mike McCarthy is 170 and 104 in the regular season. That's a .632 winning percentage. Sean McDermott is 76 and 43 in the regular season. That's a .639 winning percentage. So very similar numbers. In the postseason, McCarthy is 11 and 11, which is obviously 500. In the postseason, McDermott is 5 and 6, so just under 500. Biggest difference between these 2 head coaches is that Mike McCarthy has won a Super Bowl. The closest McDermott ever came was the AFC Championship in the 2020 season, where the Chiefs beat the Buffalo Bills 38-24. So by pure logic, McCarthy is the slightly better head coach, but he's been fired as a head coach before and is on the hot seat now / in the last year of his contract. So fine, maybe he doesn't get fired, but letting the contract expire is, for all intents and purposes, the same thing. Now, one of the reasons that I think Sean McDermott should be on the hot seat is because time and time again, he struggles with critical strategic moments in the game. By the way, that's something McCarthy's been accused of as well. Take, for instance, Week 5 against the Texans. Second quarter, 2:48 on the clock. The score is Buffalo 3, Houston 14. Bills have all 3 timeouts, haven't used a challenge. Dalton Kincaid makes a great sideline catch that would keep the drive going for the Bills, but it's ruled incomplete. Sean McDermott elects not to challenge the call and punts the ball back to the Texans. Now, I have often heard people say that you shouldn't challenge in the first half of a game because what if you need that challenge in the second half? Here's the issue with that logic. With replay assists this year, there's been more calls right than ever before because the eye in the sky has the ability to buzz in and tell the refs they made a mistake and what the right call is. So the chances you would even need to challenge anything in the second half are kind of slim. On top of that, it's extremely rare for a coach to use 2 challenges in a game anyways. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I've seen so much football that I've seen situations where a coach won their first 2 challenges and then made a 3rd challenge. If I remember correctly, it was Belichick, and I think he lost the 3rd one, but don't quote me on that. Bottom line, next to nobody ends up needing more than 1 challenge a game in the modern NFL. So there's no good reason not to challenge this catch. You need to try to keep the drive going and give yourself a chance to get points by the end of the half. If you watched that game, you might remember that it ended with a Texans field goal to win. So any points before the half for the Bills would have had a huge impact down the stretch of that game. If you don't like that example, because I'm just talking about a first half challenge, fair enough. Let's go later in the game. Fourth quarter, 32 seconds on the clock. Tie ball game. Buffalo has the ball on their own 2-yard line. Bills have no timeouts. Texans have 3 timeouts. Doing anything other than running the ball or kneeling is straight up illogical. The Bills defense hadn't allowed a touchdown since the first quarter, so even if you believe in your offense and you want to put the ball in Josh Allen's hands, you are so much better off kneeling or running the ball to try and force overtime. Because even if the game goes to overtime and Houston wins the coin toss and gets the ball first, your defense hasn't allowed a touchdown since the first quarter, so even if Houston gets a field goal in their opening possession in overtime, at least you'll get the ball back with a legitimate chance to win, as opposed to trying to win it from your own 2-yard line, where so many things can go wrong, the least of which being a 3-and-out where Houston didn't have to use any timeouts. Because even if you run or kneel and Houston decides to use their timeouts because they do want to force you to punt the ball back to them, when Houston gets the ball back with 7 seconds, they don't have a timeout to help them, so the entire middle of the field is out of play. And they don't want to risk an interception return on a Hail Mary, so they probably would have wound up taking a knee themselves. Bottom line, Sean McDermott made 2 crucial mistakes that cost the game against the Texans, and the problem with having a lack of logic the way McDermott does is that in the postseason, you don't play teams like the Cardinals, Dolphins, and Jaguars. You play very strategic, smart teams like the Ravens and Texans. And if your coach isn't as good at strategy as the other coaches, you're not going to go very far. And that's how you end up with a below 500 postseason record. Now, do I think McDermott is on the hot seat? No, I do not. I think the Bills could lose 9 of their remaining 12 games this season, and McDermott is still the head coach in 2025. So who do I really think could be the next head coach to be fired in the NFL? If I had to bet, I would say Doug Peterson. Peterson's gone 19-20 as the Jaguars head coach. He's 61-57 overall as a head coach. Obviously, the 2017 Super Bowl win is a high point in his career, but the Jaguars look like they might be the worst team in the NFL this year. I don't see the Jaguars bouncing back from this horrible start, especially when from October 27th to December 1st, they play the Packers, Eagles, Vikings, Lions, Texans, all in a row. So after their next 2 games in London against the Bears and the Patriots, the Jags might not win again until December. For that reason, Doug Peterson may very well be the next coach fired in the NFL. I'm Seattle Mike on the mic. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Later.